For this week's Self-Care Sunday is how using your words can be one of the most powerful ways that you practice self-care. And I am taking you straight back to your preschool and kindergarten years where you probably learned that one valuable social skill. Use your words. I'm talking about owning your narrative, knowing when to stand in the I am, knowing when to split the we are, and knowing when to put a stop to the you are. And so before I get into my topic for this week, I just wanted to say that I realize what I share as part of Self Care Sunday is not the traditional things that you may be familiar with when people talk about self care. A lot of people look at self care as like taking a nice bubble bath and sipping champagne and lighting your favorite candles. And I promise you, one day I will get around to sharing some of those things with you guys in a Self Care Sunday topic. But self care is so much more than that. And when I think about some of the women that I admire, I think of them describing self care as a way that we honor ourselves in every part, including our words. I know you guys have seen that little meme or picture where it says, I am. Two of the most powerful words that you can put together because what comes after it can really shape your reality. That's why I feel that we must take care with the way that we use our words because we also teach people how to treat us based off of the words that we use. And as I think back and reflect back to my teenage years, I think about like one of the biggest wounds that I suffered to my self-esteem was my inability to use my words when it mattered the most. And for me, that was tied directly into who I was. And I'm talking about the circumstances surrounding the way I was conceived in my birth, being raised by a single mom, and also me comparing myself to my classmates and friends who came from more intact families. And I had learned pretty early on that I could not speak my truth because my truth was a source of not only embarrassment and shame, but a source of hurt and pain for others. And so I remember, I think I was in about the sixth or seventh grade, and I was on the bus. We were riding home from school, and me and my best friend, we were talking about our families, and then she started sharing about her father's bastard daughter and the financial strain that it was putting on the family. And so I say the word bastard now, and I cringe when anyone uses that term. The definition of bastard is a child that is born outside of a marriage, right? And then if you go further into it, illegitimate, which was a term that was like heavily thrown around, during, I know, the 70s and 80s and 90s when I grew up. Irregular, inferior, of questionable origin. And it also had this word spurious. And so it said, see spurious. So I went to spurious. It's Spurious. That means false, fake, not what it purports to be. And so, like I said, I had learned early on that this word, bastard, who I was, on top of a child conceived outside of a marriage, that's on my dad, lying to my mom. But anyway, so a child conceived outside of a marriage, that was a lot for me to carry as a teenager. And so early on, I learned that I could not speak about certain people in my family, such as my father, because it was a source of shame, embarrassment, hurt, and pain. And so just imagine, carrying around that weight of, this this word bastard, who says that you're illegitimate, you're fake, you're false, you're inferior, you're irregular. And I began to really take those things in. And I remember, like, in my 20s, I read Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And in this, her memoir, she talks about going mute for a couple years of her life after she had been sexually abused by a family friend, I believe. And what had happened was when she had disclosed her what had happened to her, someone murdered him. She believed in her mind, because of course I'm sure, they're not going to tell her, we killed this man. But she took it and she started to internalize that her voice, her sharing that, had killed that man. And so again, like I said, I silenced my voice because it just seemed who I was a source of hurt, pain, shame, and embarrassment. Now, I don't know Maya Angelou's stories as well as I know my own, but what I do know is during those times that I was silent, I was very, very angry, because I thought deep down inside, how dare anyone tell me who I am? And so for many years, I was in this invisible fight with myself, in this narrative that was, placed onto who I was. And so I battled to be the extreme opposite of that narrative. I was going to be a wife, a mother. My kids were not going to be illegitimate, irregular, inferior, and all of those things. But that was not the battle to fight. The battle for me to fight was using my words, right? Standing in my I ams, knowing when to split those we's and when to join in with those we's, and also knowing when to stop the you are's and things like that. So that's why I say it's always very important to take care with the words that you use, because we teach people how to treat us. And so maybe if I had more encouragement in that area as a teenager, I probably wouldn't have been as angry, right? I probably wouldn't have been as silent if I had therapy or something like that. But I look back and I reflect on it. Like I said, it's one of the biggest wounds to my self-esteem as a teenager, is that inability to use my words. And so now as an adult, using your words appropriately is very, very important still. And again, like I said, it is one of the most important